Historical European martial arts, or HEMA, is an umbrella term for the martial combat systems of Europe which have since died out.
HEMA is historical European martial arts, and basically that's exactly what it says. It's historical, it's based on martial arts treatises, mainly sword fighting treatises, but some wrestling and some wrestling, dagger disarm, such like things, written from as far back as 1300 up to the 19th and 20th century.
Due to the often predominantly Eastern martial arts, such as karate, Muay Thai and Kung Fu, HEMA is for the most part overlooked.
HEMA isn't as well known as its Eastern counterparts because European martial arts, European swordsmanship in particular, died out. The Europeans developed repeating firearms, and the usefulness of swords and polearms fell away, and the arts just fell into abeyance. And it's only really that there was a move to revive medieval and Renaissance martial arts in the 15 or so years before World War I, but unfortunately most of the people who are interested in military things died in World War I, and so after World War I it wasn't there anymore, and it was only really starting in the 1980s and 1990s that people got back into looking at the old manuals that are out there and saying, well, this would be fun to do, this would be fun to resurrect, and looking at the manuals in detail, just going through them line by line, paragraph by paragraph, saying, what are these guys trying to teach us? All right, and resurrecting what were to that point dead martial arts.
However, there is a growing movement of historical researchers attempting to revive the dying arts of historical European martial arts through the study of historical manuals, formerly written by fencing masters centuries ago. These manuals can date from the medieval period, such as I-33, to the early modern period, such as Cold Steel by Alfred Husson. These traditions vary from different weapons, such as the rapier, longsword, quarterstaff, and so on. At the Stoccata School of Defence in Hobart, Stephen Hand teaches HEMA regularly every week. He primarily teaches George Silver's short sword, but is also familiar with other styles.
The hardest things to learn, when you look at these old manuals, you don't have a living lineage. George Silver, who's the gentleman whose system I teach mostly, he's been dead for the better part of 400 years, and no one has done his system in probably at least 350 years. So we can't go back to somebody who's taught silver by Master X, who learned it from Master Y, who learned it from Master Z, all the way back to silver, like we can in some martial arts, both Eastern and Western. So we have a difficulty that when we look at the manuals, the Silver didn't write thinking someone's going to come along in 400 years and try to decipher this. He wrote for people who knew what sword fighting was, who knew what sword fighting looked like, had seen it in action.
So this here is an English style rapier. It's from about the early 1600s, and it's the kind that probably would have been used by the English master Joseph Sweetnam. Now, Sweetnam is the only source of English rapier that we have, native English rapier. We've got a lot of foreigners coming over and teaching their rapier fighting to the English, which terribly upset George Silver.
Joseph Sweetnam lived around the same time as George Silver in the late 16th century, and unlike Silver, embraced the teaching of the prominent Italian fencing styles of the time.
George Silver is the gentleman, and he was a gentleman in the very strict sense that the word was used back in the 16th and 17th centuries. He wrote 2 fencing manuals, which is where most of the system I teach comes from, and he objected very strenuously to particularly Italian rapier fencing that was then coming into popularity in England, and he argued that Italian rapier fencing was very good for duelling, and it's good for killing one's own countrymen in times of peace, but no good for killing people from other countries in times of war.
Vincenzo Saviolo, the Italian fencing master, was also at odds with George Silva. George at one point challenged Saviolo and Rocco Benetti to a duel with various weapons, including the rapier. However, they never responded.